again, bear with us on this. You know, we had a robust discussion about parks earlier. The fact of the matter is, if you look at any list of recommended actions, getting fresh air, with two healthcare experts to my right, I think getting fresh air and being out in the open is a good thing. And so I think we would look kindly upon that, other than please be safe, because after 8 o'clock, by definition, is dark out. So I'm not sure how much of that is going on. Deliveries, we've said we're okay, particularly food deliveries. I forget what else you had asked as part of that.
And penalties for people.
Oh, so Pat and I talked about this. I don't want to. I'm going to give you my answer, and then Pat, you should come in and tell me. We're gonna. If you're a non-essential business, and you're staying open beyond 8 o'clock, we'll probably give you a warning shot, but we probably won't give you two.
Are warehouses, particularly those with Amazon shipping, non-essential?
I haven't been asked about warehouses. I have to believe we have to allow them to continue to operate, because that would impact the supply chain, and that's the last thing we need right now. So I think you should assume that warehouses are going to have to be able to proceed as business as usual. Was I too kind on the one warning shot and not two, or not?
No, it's a kinder, gentler state police. No, I would agree with the governor as far as discretion being one of our greatest tools in law enforcement, and that the warning is where we're going to start.
But are there penalties?
At this juncture, I don't know what the penalty would be.
Okay.
I'll tell you what we won't look kindly upon, and I do mean this, and this is a local law enforcement issue, not the Russians are weighing in on Sheila's phone here just to make sure they answer Nikita's question about the elections, is we won't look kindly upon big house parties, big private property parties. I'm not a member of law enforcement. I'm not particularly in a local law enforcement. Pat's got about 90 communities that the state police have direct responsibility for. We will not treat those kindly, nor should we. That's completely contrary to the objective. Back to the most important first question, Judy. Sorry about that.
I don't have specificity on the numbers. I can tell you the majority are hospitalized or have been hospitalized. Several have mild to moderate disease, and they are able to be handled and followed at home. Just generally speaking, about 80–85% of the people that get COVID-19 will have mild to moderate disease. 15% may require or do require hospitalization, and of that 15%, right now we don't have very strict percentages, because as you know, the numerator and denominators are very difficult to get, but a certain amount of them will require critical care, going into pneumonia, organ failure, and unfortunately we do expect that we will unfortunately more deaths as a result. But again, 80–85% mild to moderate.
Thank you, Judy. Let's come over here. Let's go, Brenda, and then we'll go across the back, please.
Hey, Governor. So
hey, Brenda.
We've got people who are, typing in on social media. What do you consider to be non-essential driving, the kind of driving? I mean, what am I allowed to be on the road for? What should I avoid going out between 8 and 5 on the road?
I think you gotta use your judgment and your common sense. So at one end is you're going over to a buddy's house to drink. No, sorry. And by the way, don't drink and drive anyway. But even if you're in an Uber or a Lyft, at the other end, you've got a sick family member, or I won't even use the example of being a healthcare worker, because they're obviously essential. But we basically are saying as loudly and clearly, unless you need to be out, we want you to be at home. Please.
Thank you, Governor. Just a couple questions relating to the legislature. You mentioned earlier you're expecting a pretty significant economic impact from all of this. Have you consulted with Treasury about revenue projections going into 2021?
What else do you have?
And then the second one has to do with the legislative package that's moving through the Assembly today, all addressing coronavirus. How closely were you working with them on that, or do you plan on signing those bills should they reach?
Yeah, so on the first question, we had I think I mentioned this, we had a good meeting with the treasurer and her team. It's too early to give you a crisp answer on this. We'll do everything we can within our powers. I'm not here to make a budget speech and for Sheila and me to pound the table on what we've asked for, but recurring revenues really matter now more than ever before. And that's a point that I think is an obvious one, but I want to make that point. And secondly, we're going to need the federal government with us in a big way. And I think everybody recognizes that. And I don't mean just New Jersey. We're going to need help. This is beyond any one state. I think Governor Cuomo said the other day that there's no amount of money New York State has that can compensate for the revenue and business loss, and certainly that's the case for New Jersey. The fact of the matter is we have the same posture as I would always give you about legislature and pieces of legislature. We look at them one at a time. I want to give a big shout out to the legislature and the leadership on both sides of the aisle. Our teams have gone through the steps we're announcing today. They've been very responsive. I know their heart is in the right place. Will tell you, we've been working 24 hours a day, including through the weekend. We just haven't had the ability to look at each of these bills on their own, as we may have in a quieter time. Conceptually, some of them are very consistent with where we want to go and where we agree we should go. And I mentioned the other day, and this is a good example that Sheila and I have talked about, and Lamont knows this well, and now Zakiya with the higher ed is reducing the digital divide. I think I mentioned this on Friday. If you do the math, we think there are 210,000 of our school kids out of 1.4 million who have acute food insecurity, and about, I think based on a survey that you had done, 259,000 of our K through 12 kids in this case didn't have access to a device at home. Anything we could do as a state, I hope with the help of the federal government. And I also want to give a shout out to private